My wife thought she was playing the perfect game. She thought she could hide her dirty little secret right under my nose in the house that I paid for. She thought I left for work like a good, oblivious husband. Instead, I did the one thing she never expected. I invited her lover over to join the party. What happened in the next 20 minutes didn't just end our marriage. It completely destroyed her reality. Welcome back to Inspiration Seeker. If you enjoy stories about instant karma, sweet revenge, and standing up for yourself, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and drop a comment below. Let me know, have you ever caught someone in a lie that was so big you almost admire the audacity? Let's get into the story. I woke up that morning feeling like the luckiest man in Los Angeles. It was early 2025, and the California sun was just starting to bleed through the automated smart glass windows of our master bedroom in the Hollywood Hills. The house was quiet, humming with that expensive high-tech silence that smells like success. Beside me, Virginia was still asleep. I took a moment just to look at her. Even after 5 years of marriage, she was breathtaking. Her blonde hair was sprawled across the silk pillowcase, and her breathing was soft and rhythmic. She looked like an angel, peaceful, innocent, and completely devoted. Or so I thought. I remember brushing a stray hair from her forehead and thinking, David, you really made it. I had the booming tech startup, the dream house, and the trophy wife who used to model for Instagram brands. I genuinely believed we were partners against the world. I slid out of bed carefully so I wouldn't wake her up. The floor heating warmed my feet as I walked to the ensuite bathroom. My routine was clockwork. I showered, shaved, and put on my suit. I had a critical meeting scheduled in San Diego later that day, or at least that was the plan. My mind was already racing with business strategies and quarterly projections. I was completely focused on building our future, never suspecting that the person I was building it for was busy tearing it down behind my back. Down in the kitchen, the coffee machine had already brewed my espresso exactly how I liked it. Black, no sugar. I stood by the kitchen island, sipping the coffee and looking out at the infinity pool. The water was perfectly still. It was the definition of a picture-perfect life. I felt secure. I felt loved. I felt safe. It's funny how life works, isn't it? It gives you the illusion of absolute perfection right before it pulls the rug out from under you. I finished my cup, rinsed it, and headed back upstairs to grab my watch and give Virginia a goodbye kiss. I had no idea that when I walked back into that bedroom, the man I was, the trusting, loving husband, was about to die right there on the carpet. When I stepped back into the master suite, the room was filled with the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. Virginia was taking her morning shower, humming a tune I didn't recognize. It sounded cheerful, lighthearted. I remember smiling at the sound, thinking about how happy she seemed lately. I attributed it to her new fitness routine. She had been obsessed with getting in shape for the summer, spending hours at the gym every week. I was proud of her dedication. I walked over to the mahogany dresser to grab my watch and cufflinks, ready to head out the door. That's when it happened. Virginia's phone, the new iPhone 16 Pro I had bought her just last month, was sitting face up on the marble vanity. It buzzed once, a short, sharp vibration against the hard surface. The screen lit up, cutting through the dim morning light. Usually, I respect her privacy. We had that kind of trust where passcodes were shared but never used. I wasn't the jealous type, and I certainly wasn't looking for trouble. But my eyes just happened to drift downward as I fastened my watch. The notification banner was right there, crystal clear. The sender ID read, Jack's trainer. My first thought was mundane. Maybe he was canceling her session. Maybe he was sending a diet plan. But then I read the preview text below the name. The words didn't make sense at first. My brain refused to process them. It read, thinking about yesterday. Your legs looked amazing wrapped around me. Time stopped. I swear, the room actually went silent. The sound of the shower faded into a dull roar in the back of my head. I stared at those words, reading them over and over again until they burned into my retinas. Legs wrapped around me. That wasn't a workout position. That wasn't a deadlift or squat. That was intimacy. That was betrayal. My stomach dropped as if I were in a free-falling elevator. A wave of nausea hit me, so hard I had to grip the edge of the dresser to keep from collapsing. My hands, which had been steady a moment ago, started to shake uncontrollably. The woman I loved, the woman singing in the shower 10 feet away, wasn't getting fit. She was getting laid. And she was doing it with the man I was paying $150 an hour to train her. The perfect morning shattered into a million jagged pieces, and I was left standing in the wreckage, holding a platinum watch and a broken heart. The tremor in my hands was getting worse, spreading up my arms until my whole body felt like it was vibrating. I stared at the phone as if it were a bomb ticking down to zero. In a way, it was. A part of me wanted to put it down, walk away, and pretend I never saw it. Denial is a powerful drug. But the other part of me, the part that built a multi-million-dollar company from a garage in San Jose, needed to know the data. I needed the full picture. I reached out and swiped the screen. It asked for a passcode. I didn't even hesitate. I typed in October 14th, 19, our wedding anniversary. The irony tasted like ash in my mouth. The phone unlocked instantly, granted me access to the digital evidence of my wife's double life. I tapped on a message thread with Jax, and my heart hammered against my ribs, so hard I thought it might crack them. I scrolled up. It wasn't just that morning. It wasn't just yesterday. This thread went back 3 months. 3 months of good morning, beautiful. 3 months of can't wait to see you. 3 months of explicit photos and inside jokes that I wasn't a part of. I saw a picture of her wearing a dress I bought her for our date night, captioned, "Wish I was wearing this to you instead of him." That one hurt more than the sexual ones. It was a complete invalidation of our life together. The rage that surged through me was blinding. For a split second, I wanted to kick down the bathroom door, throw the phone at her, and scream until my lungs gave out. But then something shifted. It was like a switch flipped in my brain. The emotional, wounded husband was shoved into a corner, and the cold, calculating CEO took the wheel. In business, you don't react to a crisis with emotion. You react with strategy. You don't show your hand until you have all the leverage. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd gaslight me. She'd say it was just flirting, that nothing happened. I needed undeniable proof. I needed to catch them red-handed. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I knew exactly how she texted. The abbreviations, the lack of capitalization. I took a deep breath, steadying my fingers, and typed a reply pretending to be her. "Come over right now. He just left for work. I need you." I stared at the words. It was a gamble. If he called, I was busted. If he texted back asking why she was up so early, I was busted. But I had to take the risk. I hit send. The little blue bubble appeared on the screen, sealing my fate. I had just invited the man destroying my marriage into my home. I didn't have to wait long. In fact, I barely had time to blink. The 3 little typing dots appear on the screen almost instantly, dancing mockingly before my eyes. It was pathetic, really. It showed just how eager he was, how little respect he had for the sanctity of another man's home. The phone buzzed again. On my way, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. That was the timeline. 20 minutes until my life officially imploded. A cold resolve washed over me. I had to move fast. My first instinct was to throw the phone across the room, but the strategic part of my brain intervened. I quickly long pressed the message I had sent, the invitation, and hit delete for everyone. Then I deleted his reply. To Virginia. Her phone would look exactly as it did before she stepped into the shower. No evidence of my interference. I placed the device back on the marble vanity, exactly where I found it, ensuring the angle was perfect. Now came the performance of a lifetime. I needed Virginia to believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that the coast was clear. I walked to the bedroom door and raised my voice just loud enough to be heard over the shower, but not loud enough to sound angry. "Honey, I'm running late. Traffic looks terrible on the 405, so I've got to fly." "Okay, baby. Love you," she shouted back. Her voice was cheerful, melodic. It was the voice of a woman who thought she had successfully pulled the wool over her husband's eyes. Hearing that "love you" felt like a physical blow to the gut. It was a lie wrapped in sweetness. "Love you too." I choked out. The lie tasted bitter. I grabbed my briefcase, walked heavily down the stairs, and opened a heavy oak front door. I stepped out, then slammed it shut with a deliberate, echoing thud. I waited a beat, then triggered the remote lock, so it beeped loud enough for her to hear upstairs. But I didn't get in my Tesla. I didn't drive away. Instead, I slipped quietly through the side hallway that led to the basement. This was my territory, my soundproof home office and server room. It was where I did my deep work. But today, it would serve a darker purpose. I sat in my ergonomic chair, the room pitch black, and tapped my tablet. The wall of monitors flickered to life, showing every angle of the house in high-definition 4K. I was no longer a husband. I was a spectator in my own tragedy, waiting for the curtain to rise.
They say that time is relative, and sitting in that darkened room, I finally understood what that meant. Those 20 minutes felt like a lifetime stretched out on a rack. My basement office was pitch black, illuminated only by the ghostly blue glow of the security monitors. I felt like a security guard in my own life, patrolling the ruins of a marriage I thought was bulletproof. On screen 3, the master bedroom feed, the bathroom door opened. Virginia stepped out, wrapped in a plush white towel, her wet hair slicked back. This was the moment of truth. If she checked her phone and saw a gap in the timestamps or noticed something off, the game was up. I held my breath as she walked over to the vanity. She picked up the phone. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Don't scroll up," I pleaded silently. "Just put it down." She glanced at the screen, probably just checking the time or looking at her lock screen notifications. Then, she did something that broke me more than the affair itself. She smiled. It wasn't the polite smile she gave me when I came home from work. It was a giddy schoolgirl smirk. She set the phone down, hummed a little melody, and dropped the towel. I watched, feeling a sick mixture of voyeurism and devastation, as she walked to her closet. She didn't reach for her usual sweatpants or the oversized t-shirt she wore when she was just relaxing. She pulled out a sheer, silk kimono, the expensive one I had bought her in Kyoto on our honeymoon. She tied it loosely around her waist, inspected herself in the full-length mirror, and adjusted her hair. She was preening. She was getting ready to be looked at, to be touched. She sashayed out of the bedroom and down the stairs. On screen 1, the living room feed, I watched her enter the kitchen. She started making a green smoothie, dancing slightly to the music in her head. She looked so light, so unburdened. The realization hit me hard. She was happiest when I was gone. She wasn't just cheating on me physically, she was cheating me out of a genuine life. She was playing house with me, but saving her real self for him. I checked my watch. 18 minutes had passed. The show was about to begin. The chime of the smart doorbell echoed through the house like a gavel striking a judge's podium. From my basement command center, I watched Virginia freeze mid-sip of her smoothie. Her brows knitted together in genuine confusion. She wasn't expecting anyone. Remember, I had deleted the invitation text from her phone, so as far as she knew, this was an unannounced visitor. Who on earth? I heard her mutter through the audio feed. She set her glass down and tightened the sash of her silk kimono, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror one last time. She approached the front door cautiously, peering through the side window. On my external camera feed, I saw him. Jax. He pulled up in a bright red Dodge Challenger, a car that screamed midlife crisis despite him being in his 20s. He didn't park on the street. He pulled right into my circular driveway, blocking the entrance. The audacity was staggering. He hopped out, wearing a tight muscle tee that showed off the arms I was paying him to use for spotting bench presses, not holding my wife. Back on the living room feed, I saw Virginia's expression shift instantly from caution to a wide, surprised grin. She unlocked the door and swung it open. "Jax," she said, her voice dropping an octave into that sultry tone she used to reserve for me. "What are you doing here?" "You crazy idiot, the neighbors might see." Jax didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped across the threshold with a swagger that made my blood boil. He walked in like he paid the mortgage. Before the door was even closed, his hands were on her waist, pulling her close. You told me to come over right now, he laughed, nuzzling her neck. Said you needed me. I broke every speed limit in LA to get here. Virginia pulled back slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. I told you to? I didn't text you. She paused, her eyes darting around as if trying to recall a memory that didn't exist. But then, the lust took over. She shrugged, dismissing the inconsistency. Maybe I sleep texted. Or maybe the universe just knew I wanted you. She wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. David just left. We have the whole house to ourselves. Watching them on that screen, embracing in the foyer of the home I built, was the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. The hesitation was gone. The love was gone. All that was left was the trap I was about to spring. It was time to go upstairs.
I disconnected the tablet from the dock and stood up. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was crystal clear. I walked up the basement stairs, every step deliberate and silent. I could hear them in the foyer, the hushed giggles, the sound of fabric rustling, the sickening noise of a kiss. I paused at the door connecting the service hallway to the main living area. I took a deep breath, adjusted my cuffs, and grabbed a fresh cup of coffee I had brewed downstairs. I wanted to look casual. I wanted to look like I belonged there, because I did. I pushed the door open. They were so wrapped up in each other, they didn't hear me approach until I was 5 feet away. I cleared my throat, a loud, sharp sound that sliced through the romantic tension like a machete. Actually, I said, my voice calm, steady, and terrifyingly polite. I was the one who invited you, Jax. The reaction was instantaneous and cinematic. They sprang apart as if an electric current had shocked them both. But it was Virginia's face that will haunt me forever. In that split second, I saw her soul leave her body. The color drained from her cheeks, so fast she looked like a corpse. Her eyes went wide. Pupils dilated to the size of dinner plates, and her mouth hung open in a silent scream. She was paralyzed. It was a look of someone whose entire reality had just snapped in half. She looked from me to Jax and back to me, her brain misfiring. Tried to calculate how I was standing there when I was supposed to be on the freeway. Jax, to his credit, or perhaps his stupidity, didn't run immediately. He took a step back, raising his hands in a pathetic surrender motion. Whoa, David. Hey, man. I didn't know you were home. He tried to force a laugh, but it came out as a strangled choke. We were just doing an assessment. Posture check. You know how it is. An assessment, I repeated, taking a slow sip of my coffee. I didn't blink. Is that what you call it? Because the text I read on my wife's phone this morning suggested a very different kind of workout. Virginia finally found her voice, but it was thin and trembling. David, wait, please. It's not what you think. You're confused. She reached out a hand toward me, her fingers shaking. I can explain. There's nothing to explain, Virginia, I said, walking past with a large 85-inch television mounted on the living room wall. But if you want to review the highlights of your performance, I have everything prepared. I pulled my phone out and tapped the screen mirroring button. It was time for the presentation.
There is a specific kind of desperation that takes over a liar when they are cornered. It's ugly, it's loud, and it defies all logic. As I tapped the screen mirroring icon on my phone, Virginia didn't just cry, she attacked. You hacked my phone, she shrieked, her voice cracking. This is illegal, David. You're invading my privacy. You're being paranoid and controlling. She tried to rush toward me, maybe to grab the phone, but she stopped short when the 85-inch QLED television behind me flickered to life. The screen, usually reserved for movie nights and Super Bowl parties, was now broadcasting her infidelity in high definition. The chat log with Jax appeared, blown up to massive proportions. Every heart emoji, every illicit photo, every dirty promise was there, glowing in 4K resolution. Paranoid? I asked, my voice dangerously low. I scrolled up on my phone, and the TV screen mirrored the movement instantly. Is it paranoia when I read this message from Tuesday? He's so boring, Jax. I can't wait to feel a real man tonight. Virginia's face crumpled. She looked at Jax for help, but he was staring at his shoes, realizing the gravity of the situation. She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration that her narrative was collapsing. That was a joke, she stammered, pointing a shaking finger at the screen. We were joking. It's banter, David. He brings me supplements. He's helping me with my diet. You're reading into things because you're insecure. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. Even with her words literally towering over us on the wall, she was trying to convince me that the sky was green. She was trying to gaslight me in real time, rewriting reality to fit her survival. Supplements, I repeated flatly. I scrolled to a photo she sent him, a selfie from our bed, wearing nothing but a smile. Is this part of the diet plan, Virginia? Is this the cardio regimen? The room went dead silent. The evidence was insurmountable. Her supplements' defense died in the air between us. She stopped screaming and slumped against the console table, realizing that no amount of manipulation could argue with the pixels on the wall. I looked at Jax, who was sweating profusely, and then back at my wife. You have 10 seconds to stop lying, I said, before I forward this entire thread to your father.
The mention of her father, a stern, retired military officer who valued honor above everything, sucked the oxygen right out of the room. Virginia closed her mouth, her face turning a sickly shade of gray. She knew I wasn't bluffing. I never bluffed. I turned my attention to Jax. He was shifting his weight from foot to foot, looking at the door, then back at me, calculating his odds. He was bigger than me, younger than me, and definitely stronger. In a physical fight, he'd probably win. But we weren't in a boxing ring. We were in the real world, and in the real world, I held all the cards. I know what you're thinking, Jax, I said, stepping closer to him until I was invading his personal space. You're wondering if you should hit me. Go ahead. There are 4 cameras recording this room right now, and the footage uploads instantly to a cloud server. Assault and battery added to trespassing? My lawyers would have a field day. You'd be in prison before lunch. Jax blanched. The bravado melted away, revealing the coward underneath. Look, man, I'm leaving, Jax stammered, backing away toward the foyer. I don't want any trouble. You already brought the trouble, I replied coldly. You have exactly 60 seconds to get your car off my driveway before I authorize the smart security system to alert the LAPD. And Jax, if I ever see you near my property or my wife again, I will spend every dime I have ensuring you never work in this city again. He didn't look at Virginia. He didn't offer to take her with him. He didn't even say goodbye. He just turned and bolted out the front door, the heavy wood slamming behind him. The sound of his Dodge Challenger peeling out of the driveway seconds later was a pathetic soundtrack to his exit. Virginia was left standing alone in the center of the living room, shivering in her sheer kimono. The silence was deafening. The realization that her savior had just abandoned her hit her hard. She looked at me, her eyes welling up with fresh tears. This time, tears of fear. David, she whispered, reaching out. Baby, please. Don't do this. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care, I said, walking to the door and holding it open. Take the Mercedes. It's the only thing with your name on the title. Pack a bag if you want. You have 5 minutes. But you are leaving this house, Virginia, right now. You can't kick me out, she wailed, falling to her knees. Watch me, I said. You wanted a life with him? Go chase him. But you are done here. Virginia didn't leave with dignity. There was no quiet resignation or cinematic exit. She screamed. She threw a vase against the wall, and she cursed me with words I didn't know she knew. But eventually, when she realized I wasn't going to crack, she ran upstairs, shoved a random assortment of clothes into a Louis Vuitton duffel bag, and stormed out. I watched from the window as the taillights of her Mercedes disappeared down the winding hill, fading into the Los Angeles smog. When the engine noise faded, the silence that followed was heavy. It was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest. I locked the front door, the deadlock sliding into place with finality that echoed through the foyer. Then I just collapsed. I slid down the wall, until I hit the floor, burying my head in my hands. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation, the cold CEO persona that had allowed me to execute my plan with surgical precision, evaporated instantly. All that was left was David, just a man who had lost his wife. I wept. I'm not talking about a single, stoic tear rolling down a cheek. I'm talking about ugly, guttural sobbing that shook my entire body. I sat there on the cold hardwood floor of my multi-million-dollar mansion, feeling more destitute than I ever had when I was broke. It wasn't just a loss of her presence. It was a humiliation. I looked around at the house, the art on the walls, the high-end furniture, the life I had curated for us. I realized with sickening clarity that I had financed my own betrayal. I paid for the gym membership where they met. I paid for the clothes she took off for him. I paid for the phone she used to sext him. I had been the bankroll for her affair. I felt stupid. I felt used. I questioned every memory, every "I love you," every smile from the last 5 years. Was any of it real? Or was I just a convenient stepping stone for her? That night, the house felt less like a sanctuary and more like a mausoleum. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, staring at the empty space where my life used to be, wondering how I could be so successful in business and such a failure in love. A week later, the tears had dried up, replaced by the cold, hard machinery of divorce court. I sat in a conference room in downtown Los Angeles, surrounded by glass walls and expensive suits. My lawyer, a ruthless shark named Marcus, sat at the head of the table. Next to him was Sarah, a forensic accountant I had hired to untangle our finances. I expected this meeting to be routine, dividing assets, arguing over the house, the usual misery. I wasn't prepared for the bombshell Sarah was about to drop. "David," Sarah said, sliding a thick file folder across the polished mahogany table. "We found some irregularities in the joint checking account. Specifically, a pattern of transfers over the last 18 months. I frowned, picking up the file. "Irregularities? Virginia bought a lot of designer clothes. I know that." "This isn't clothes," Sarah corrected, her voice professional but sympathetic. "These are cash transfers. See here? For $1,500 on the 3rd, $3,800 on the 15th. All just under the $5,000 threshold that usually triggers immediate internal review alerts at your bank." She was structuring the withdrawals to avoid detection. I scanned the columns of numbers. The total at the bottom of the page made my stomach churn. $195,000. Where did this money go? I asked, though a sick feeling in my gut told me I already knew the answer. "It went to a newly formed LLC," Sarah said, tapping a document. "A company called Apex Bodyworks. We pulled the registration papers this morning. The registered agent is Jackson Miller." The room spun. Jax. The betrayal suddenly took on a new, more sinister dimension. This wasn't just a crime of passion or a moment of weakness. This was embezzlement. Virginia hadn't just been sleeping with him. She had been funding him. She was stealing my money I worked 18-hour days to earn, to finance her lover's dream of owning his own gym. She was literally building her future with him by dismantling the foundation of mine. She was banking on the divorce, Marcus noted dryly. She was moving liquidity out of the marriage before the papers were filed, trying to set up a safety net with him. I closed the folder, my hands shaking not with sadness, but with a cold, focused fury. The sadness was gone. The husband was gone. Now they were just thieves. And in my world, you don't cry over thieves. You prosecute them. This changes everything. I said, looking Marcus in the eye, "I don't just want a divorce anymore. I want my money back. And I want to burn that gym to the ground before it even opens." I walked out of that lawyer's office a different man. The grieving husband left behind in the ruins of my marriage was dead. In his place stood the CEO, the man who had crushed competitors for far less than what Virginia and Jax had done to me. Sorrow is a heavy coat to wear, and I decided to take it off. I replaced it with armor. I didn't go home to wallow in self-pity or drink whiskey in the dark. I went straight to my office in Silicon Beach. I called up an old contact of mine, a private investigator named Silas, who used to work cyber forensics for the FBI before going private. I gave him one name, Jackson Miller. I want everything, I told him, staring out the ocean. I want parking tickets, tax returns, past relationships, credit scores. If he jaywalked in 2018, I want to know about it. Silas delivered. Within 48 hours, I had a digital dossier on Jax that was thicker than a phone book. And guess what? The fitness guru who stole my wife wasn't just a homewrecker. He was a fraud. It turned out that Apex Bodyworks wasn't just built on my stolen money. It was built on a foundation of lies. Jax had falsified his personal training certifications. The ones hanging proudly on his website were Photoshop jobs. Even better, Silas found a record of small-time investment fraud in Nevada under a slightly different spelling of his name. He had taken money from elderly clients for health supplements that never existed. But the real ace up my sleeve was the lease agreement for the new gym. The building was owned by a conservative property management firm that had a strict moral turpitude and criminal background clause. Jax had lied on the application, checking no on the criminal history box. I looked at the papers spread across my glass desk. I wasn't just looking at dirt. I was looking at a nuclear launch code. Virginia thought she was smart stealing cash. Jax thought he was slick hiding his past. But they made one fatal mistake. They messed with a man who analyzes data for a living. I didn't need to scream or fight. I just needed to make a few phone calls. I checked the calendar on my iPad. The grand opening of Apex Bodyworks was scheduled for Saturday. Perfect. I wouldn't stop them. I would let them inflate the balloon, just so I could be the one to pop it. Saturday arrived with blue skies and a gentle breeze. A perfect day for a grand opening, or a perfect day for a grand execution. I dressed with meticulous care, choosing a charcoal bespoke suit that signaled authority, not aggression. I wasn't going there to throw a punch. I was going there to drop the hammer. I pulled up to Apex Bodyworks in a black SUV. The scene was pathetic and predictable. There was a balloon arch over the entrance in black and neon green. Loud EDM music was thumping onto the sidewalk. A small crowd of local influencers and friends were gathering, smartphones out, ready to capture the success of the happy couple. Virginia looked radiant in a tight athletic dress, holding a pair of oversized scissors for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Jack stood next to her, beaming like he had just won the Super Bowl. They looked like the perfect team. Until they saw me. I stepped out of the car, flanked by two people. The property manager of the building, a stern woman named Mrs. Higgins, and a uniformed officer from the LAPD. The music didn't stop, but the cheering did. Virginia dropped the scissors. The metallic clang against the concrete was the only sound in the sudden silence. "David?" she gasped, her face draining of color. "What are you doing here? You can't be here." "Actually," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the music, "I'm here to reclaim my investment." Jax puffed up his chest, trying to play the tough guy in front of his crowd. "Get lost, man. This is private property. You're trespassing." "Not anymore." Mrs. Higgins stepped forward, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Miller, put a morality clause in your commercial lease, Section 4, Paragraph B. Providing false information regarding criminal history is grounds for immediate termination of the lease agreement. You lied about your fraud conviction in Nevada. This building is now off limits to you, effective immediately." Jax's jaw dropped. "What? No, you can't do that." "And as for the equipment," I added, gesturing to the rows of shiny new treadmills and weights visible through the glass storefront. I held up the court order my lawyer had secured that morning. Since these were purchased with funds embezzled from my joint marital account, they are currently frozen assets under the jurisdiction of the family court. You can't open a business with stolen goods, Jax. The officer stepped forward. "Jackson Miller, we also have an outstanding warrant from Nevada regarding investment fraud. We're going to need you to come with us." The transformation was absolute. The confident entrepreneur vanished, replaced by a scared criminal being cuffed in front of his girlfriend. Virginia stood there, the oversized scissors at her feet, watching her future being engaged in handcuffs while the past she betrayed stood watching, untouched and unbothered. The influencers didn't stop filming. They just pivoted to capture the arrest. It was the ultimate social media content, just not the kind she wanted. 6 months is a long time in the tech world, but in the life of a socialite who has fallen from grace, it must feel like an eternity. The legal battle didn't drag on as long as Virginia had hoped, with the video evidence of the affair, the proof of embezzlement, and the ironclad prenup my lawyers had drafted 5 years ago. She didn't have a leg to stand on. The judge was particularly unimpressed by the fact that she had stolen nearly $200,000 from her husband to fund a criminal enterprise. She walked out of that courtroom with exactly what she deserved. Nothing. No alimony, no house, no settlement. The fallout was total. In Los Angeles, your social standing is often tied to your zip code and your bank account. When Virginia lost both her friends, the ones who drank my champagne and lounged by my pool, evaporated like mist. They didn't want to be associated with the woman whose husband had her lover arrested on Instagram Live. She became a pariah. I moved on. I didn't check up on her. I didn't need to. But last Tuesday, late at night, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. No text, just a video file. Against my better judgment, I clicked play. It was Virginia, but not the Virginia I knew. The blonde hair was dull and pulled back in a messy bun. She wasn't wearing makeup. The background wasn't our marble kitchen or a high-end spa. It was a cramped, beige studio apartment with a window unit AC rattling in the corner. She looked tired. She looked broken. "David," she choked out, tears instantly filling her eyes. I don't even know why I'm sending this. I miss you. I miss us. I'm living in this awful place in the valley, and I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Jax he was nothing. He didn't mean anything. Please, can we just talk? I'll sign whatever you want. I just want to come home. She sobbed into the camera, her face blotchy and red. It was a performance of pure misery. A year ago, seeing her cry like that would have torn me apart. I would have moved mountains to fix it. But staring at my phone screen in my quiet, peaceful office, I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just the dull recognition of a stranger. She didn't miss me. She missed the lifestyle I provided. She missed the safety. She missed the man who fixed her problems. But that man didn't exist anymore. She had killed him the moment she invited another man into our home. I didn't reply. I didn't type out a scathing response or send a "told you so." I simply tapped block caller, deleted the video, and put my phone back in my pocket. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. They say the best revenge is living well. I used to think that was just a cliche people put on bumper stickers to make themselves feel better. But standing here on the terrace of my new penthouse in Tribeca, looking out over the glittering Manhattan skyline, I finally understand what it means. I sold the house in the Hollywood Hills 2 months after the divorce was finalized. I couldn't live there anymore, not with the ghosts of what happened in that foyer. I sold it to a young actor who didn't know the history, and I used the proceeds to expand my company to the East Coast. We went public last month. The IPO was the biggest in the tech sector this quarter. By all standard metrics, I am wealthier now than I ever was with Virginia. But the real wealth isn't in the bank account. It's in the quiet moments. Inside, in the warm light of the kitchen, there's a woman named Elena making dinner. She isn't an Instagram model. She doesn't care about red carpet galas or maintaining a social standing. She's a pediatric nurse who spends her days saving kids and her nights making me laugh until my sides hurt. She drives a Honda. She insists on splitting the check on date nights because she doesn't want to owe me anything. For the first time in years, I know for a fact that the person looking at me is actually seeing me, not an ATM. Virginia taught me a painful lesson, one that cost me half my heart and a lot of sleepless nights. She taught me that you can't buy loyalty, and you certainly can't build a home on a foundation of lies. But she also gave me a gift. She forced me to value myself enough to walk away. She showed me that I was strong enough to survive the worst kind of betrayal and come out cleaner on the other side. So, to anyone listening to this story who feels stuck, who feels betrayed, or who feels like their world is ending because someone they love turned out to be a fraud, hold on. The pain is temporary. The clarity is permanent. Close the door on the people who hurt you, lock it tight, and never look back. There is a better life waiting for you, but you have to be brave enough to step into it. This has been a story for Inspiration Seeker. If David's journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Thanks for watching and stay strong.